Normally, I give my speeches with shades on. But 2 days ago, when I attended the press conference, I've noticed that the kids were wearing shades, Bonaventure and Tiago. So there's no use for me to wear shades anymore if everybody is wearing shades. And there's another practical reason for that. I always need to wear something on my face, but since I have become a very old man, I trade my shades for these. And I would like the security to silence some people. I would like us to take a minute of silence for my dear sister Koyo, of whom Bonaventure Sobejeng Dikung said that she gave more love than she had. But of course, since she gave that much love, she wouldn't have wanted to use that minute only for herself. She would have shared that minute with many others. She would have shared her minute with Henrike Gross. She would have shared her minute with Marlène. She would have shared that minute with Linam's mother. She would have shared that minute with Syndicat de Colo, with B.C. Silva, and many, many other. But more largely, I wish to dedicate that minute of silence to all the people we loved and still love, and even further, to those we don't know, we've never met, but with whom we share the same humanity. So, for them, silence, please. If we could dim the light during the silence.
The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, "How do you do?" They're really saying, "I love you." I hear babies cry. Watch them grow, they'll learn much more than I never knew. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Yes, I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Oh yeah, what a wonderful world indeed, even if some people don't know it. I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I think to myself, what a wonderful world. When Bonaventure Sobejeng Dikung. I don't like it that much when people call him Bona, as if he was not Bonaventure. When he invited me to give this keynote address, I started wondering. First of all, I wondered why he would ask me to give a speech. Maybe he wanted to have problems, or maybe not. Anyway, I started wondering what could I say that has not been said hundreds of times? What could I say about art that I haven't said myself hundreds of times? Then the idea of talking about love came to me. I struggled, I found nothing, and then I decided to leave that matter to Bell Hooks, who's become a specialist. Then this book by Marguerite Yourcenar. Marguerite Yourcenar is French. I know there's a bunch of decolonialists here who might wonder why Simon Jammet would quote a French author, or any author that would not be decolonial. I would tell to them that's their problem. I love Marguerite. She was a great writer, and it's not her fault if she was born French. So Marguerite Yourcenar wrote the memoir of the Emperor Adrian. The real name of Adrian, to Adrian, Bona is what Bonaventure is. So his real name is Publius Aelius Adrianus. He ruled Rome from 117 to 38. So that book came to my mind. I then decided that I would have a conversation with you on beauty. But don't get me wrong, I shall not tell you what beauty is or give you a scientific nor a philosophical definition of what it could be. Beauty is a mystery. It's hidden in the fringes. It is a riddle of which you never can get a complete image. It always comes by fragments, glimpses, by surprise. It might take the shape of what James Baldwin has called the evidence of things not seen. I shall be quoting James Baldwin too, because I hate him. He said so many things that I would have wanted to say. At least he's dead now, and I can use his writing. Maybe my project, beauty, sounds like an awkward project when we look around us. And Bonaventure tackled this issue yesterday. When we see that hatred is taking the world in hostage, when we see a war criminal, Benjamin N., killing innocents by thousands, when we see universities being blackmailed by Donald T., when we see Daesh, and I don't want you to call them ISIS, because ISIS was a beautiful queen. When I see Daesh spreading hatred all over, when I should stop there, I say I'm going to talk about beauty, not about ugliness. But maybe was I trying to introduce you to some heterology, which is the art of bringing from one place what is missing in another place. Heterology, bear with me, I'm not going to be too deep into heterology, is, according to the definition of the word, the fact to have two or many different discourses taking place in the same location, which means basically a certain vision of a democracy where everybody would have a voice that would not necessarily be as contradicting or getting in war with another voice. I think we need beauty. A young woman named Josephine Baker danced naked, only wearing a banana belt. Some people found it exotic. Some other, the black guys, found it insulting to the race. Some others said it was entertaining or outrageous. I think the young woman showed a courage that few of us could show. The same courage she showed when she enrolled in the French resistance to fight the Nazis while some French were collaborating. The same courage when she woke in Washington against racist America and its segregation. Of course, racism is something that does not exist in Brazil. Talking about the other America. Well, you know better for those who are Brazilian. I don't want to go too deep there. But there was some beauty in that courage. Thomas Sankara and Martin Luther King had a dream for their country. They were shot. They died for that dream. There was some beauty in these dreams. Don Quixote de la Mancha. I don't know if Don Quixote or Cervantes were decolonial, but again, you know, I'm going to use a couple of people. When he was fighting windmills and was seen as a madman, when he was trying to bring a bit of utopia in this world, there was some beauty in his madness. Gabriel Garcia Marquez, our Colombian friend, imprisoned a village in 100 years of solitude. There was some beauty in this solitude. Yukio Mishima, who thought he was a samurai, defended Japanese tradition until he killed himself. I should say, as the Japanese would say, until he committed seppuku. There was some beauty in this refusal. Friedrich Wilhelm Nietzsche, who hated what we call modernity. And I must admit that I share that hatred with him. I'm not sure I like modernity. He spent 11 years of his life condemned to silence. There was some beauty in this silence. Talking about beauty might sound like a whisper. For those of you familiar with Tracy Chapman, you know where it's coming from. Don't you know, talking about the revolution sounds like a whisper. And the words of Louis Armstrong describing a wonderful world might sound so naive to our cynical ears. There is a certain beauty in this innocence. Miles Davis didn't like Armstrong when he was young. I must confess here, but what happens in Sao Paulo must remain in Sao Paulo. I felt the same with Leopold Sédar Senghor. Miles thought that Satchmo was the white man clown, the Uncle Tom they have found to amuse them. Much later, the trumpet player acknowledged that Louis Armstrong was probably the greatest trumpet player of all time, and that what he thought was subordination was just mere courage. The courage to stand and to play. The courage to play his music. The courage to spell over and over the magic of the blue note that gave him the strength to stand up in times where black people were considered as lesser human beings. I'm sure, again, something like that could never happen in Brazil, of course. The blue note, I know there's some very good musicians here, so I'm not going to ridicule myself by getting too deep into music. But as you all know, the blue note is an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth on the grid, musical grid. It's a note that could not be found in the Western musical scores. It was created by the Africans enslaved by the trade in New Orleans in a place that was called Congo Square. The deported African wanted to play their music. They wanted to sing their stories and their sorrows and their joys. But nothing in the Western system could express their souls in a proper manner. So they invented that note, the blue note, that created all the blues, the jazz, and all the sounds that used to be called black, and that today we might call universal. Even if every now and then some people might tend to forget where they come from. The blue note is symbol of resistance. Music is resistance. There's beauty in resistance. The following words that I have borrowed from Jimmy, that's how I call Baldwin, so that you don't know that I'm quoting Baldwin, come from his last book, that it was entitled Just Above My Head. Those words could have been written for Louis Armstrong. Here I quote, "He was singing for Crunch, to protect Crunch and bring him back. And he was singing for me, to protect me and bring me back. He sang to preserve the universe, and into his voice then entered a solitary sweetness of such powerful emotion that people stood petrified, transformed. He sang of their love and their worry. He sang of their hope. With his song, he confessed himself to the audience at the foot of the mercy throne. And as his voice rose, he knew himself redeemed and in the hand of a power greater than any on earth. His love was his confession, his testimony, his gospel." End of quote. We are the audience listening to this character singing for Crunch. We are, I hope, except Bonaventure, I hope we are those friends shaking hands and saying, "How do you do?" Saying, "I love you," mentioned by Louis Armstrong. Because there is some beauty in shaking hands and saying, "I love you." We are part of a greater challenge than ourselves. And there is no way we could win the battle of beauty alone. We need friends to share the epiphany of beauty. A memory of my grandfather comes to my mind that reminds me of a beautiful song that Bill Withers wrote about his grandmother. My grandfather was a tough guy. He fought the French with machetes and French threw a napalm bomb on Cameroon. It's a war that not a lot of people talk about, but this was the kind of person my grandfather was. I remember when I would go to Cameroon and look at him, I was frightened. He looked like a sculpture, a statue, a petrified being. His eyes had such a power. When we were kids, my sibling and I would be brought to the old man. My grandfather didn't want us to become Europeans. He didn't want us to become Swiss. My grandfather didn't like Europe. He didn't care about Switzerland. He fought the French, and for him, the whole of Europe was French. They fought the fight. There was a beauty in their defeat, because at least they stood. But that's another story. We're not here to talk about Cameroon. I don't want to get nasty or angry. I want to talk about love. When the grumpy old man would see us, he could not help but say, "It's beautiful. It's beautiful." I was a kid and I was like, well, the old man is not that terrible. He found us beautiful with our European outfits, instead of the noble Bassa loincloth, instead of the cabagondo, we are pool Bassa that we would fill with French words. He would find us beautiful. Later on, I understood that the old man was not talking about us. There was a mystery there that finally my father opened to me. What was contained in this sentence is beautiful, had nothing to do with us as person. I grew older, and as Ella Natsui would say, I started to fill the blank spaces. I understood that he was talking about my mother and my father, and through them, about himself, and about all those who came before. What he found beautiful was us as a family, as a group, as a people, as human. This is the lesson that Ernst Bloch have been trying to teach us. I shall quote. This book introduces us to our embryonic figure and our unity. Their song can only be heard deciphered in the sight of a simple picture, deciphered as the Latin theme of a priori all plastic art, and the central theme of all magic, of all music. Finally, deciphered in the last possible encounter with oneself, in the elucidated darkness of the lived moment, as it suddenly opens up and perceives itself in the inconstructible question, the absolute question, the problem in itself of the we. The inconstructible question, the problem in itself of the we. We have the tendency to say we. There was this song that was saying, we are the world. We can say we who are present here, but that we would exclude those who are outside of this room. We have to be very cautious because the world have not understood what we means. They would say we, the Bassa people, we, the Bassa, we, the French, we, the Britain, we. There's a moment when we say we're creating otherness. And what Ernst Bloch is trying to teach us is that whenever we say we should even include our enemies. Because not every traveler, etc., etc. We means humanity. I guess we are far from having understood it. This means that when we ask ourselves, our friends, how do you do? We really mean it. We really care. There's a movie I wanted to write once, and I didn't, because I was not sure it would be good a movie enough. It was a story of an old Bassa guy in Los Angeles. He entered a bank, and the lady at the front desk asked him, "Good morning, sir. How do you do today?" And the old man said, "I'm so happy you asked. My feet are terrible. They gave me such a pain. My son haven't written to me for days, and this headache, and then the money is not coming." And went on like this for, let's say, 5 minutes. that sounded an hour to the woman? Who was the one who asked him, "How do you do today?" And the old man thought she was really asking him, "How do you do today?" When she was just giving this hypocrite look like politeness. I hate politeness. But how are we going to resolve the absolute question is up to us, I guess. We could start by stopping to consider whoever we are as the center of all things. The Western world, for instance, separated the fine art from ethnic aesthetic aspiration. Europe has defined beauty according to its biased definition of universality. I was told that it is because of the century of enlightenment that colonization was organized. Because I can understand that when you have the truth, when you know it all, and when you're generous, you have to share it with other people. So colonization, for the decolonialists, for those who said it was a bad thing, it was a very good thing. It was meant to bring knowledge, democracy, love to the poor people who knew nothing about it. It was meant to bring wisdom. This is European universality. And beauty, of course, could only be found in Europe. The poor things that were made in Latin America, in Asia, in Africa, was ugly, strong ugliness. And it was this kind of ritual things we could not understand. People did not understand the sense of beauty. Our world, I would like to believe it, has evolved and is much larger than the one presented to us in centuries past. We know the beauty, at least some of us, of the monolith of the Easter Island. We know the beauty of the Nkisi or the No masks. We know the beauty of the voices of Tibetan monks, pygmy polyphonies, the cave paintings, the blue note, the contorted bodies dancing asiko in the Bassa land. Excuse me to put the Bassa land. I'm a Bassa guy. And we are good. I'm kidding. Don't take me seriously. We know the beauty of this person who called himself the blackest white Brazilian, Vinicius de Moraes. We know the beauty of his words when he's teaching us how to cook a good samba. And we'd say that you can't cook a good samba without love and without sadness. There is beauty in sadness. When Bob Marley was saying, "No woman, no cry," he meant there's beauty in tears. There's nothing wrong about tears. Beauty was never, and we should say it loud, will never be the preserve of a particular geography or culture. And the West is finally forced to look around with eyes that other exists. The West is forced to unlearn what they taught to the others, which is an interesting paradox. I teach you to do that, and all of a sudden, I'm forced to admit I was wrong. And I'm unlearning in order to know you better. O tented Venus, to the chisel verses of an haiku. Every civilization has developed its own canons of beauty. But a history of a centralized world for a long time, and even today, the history of art was essentially Western. And it has rejected all forms of external beauty, external to them, relegated them to the limbo of ethnography. I remember, this reminds me of a show a friend of mine did in the Georges Pompidou Center in Paris. The title was beautiful, Artists Facing History. I went to see the show. I looked for the artist. I see French artists. I see German artists. I saw Spanish artists. I was still looking. I still wanted two Dutch artists. Still looking, saw some British artists. And that was it. So we had a quick drink with this friend who curated that show. The drink was supposed to be longer, but I don't know why. It went short. So I asked him, could you tell me what kind of a crap is this show? Artists Facing History. What do you mean by history? And what do you mean by artist? Hail to my Tuareg friend. Todo bem? Legal. So he said, well, Simon, you know, when I wrote history, and I just told him, excuse me the word, fucking write European history or Western history. It's the same thing with art history. It's another project. I have so many projects. I decided to write a book one day that would be called Universal Art History. That would only be dealing with the pygmy voices. And I would call it universal. Why not? It's a bit of that. We are here to tell the truth to people. There's beauty in truth. And this Biennale is a step forward. We don't have to subscribe to colonial lies. It's so refreshing. And here, I would like Alia, Bonaventure, and all the people involved to close their ears. It's such a relief to walk through a Biennale that doesn't look like an art fair. It's such a relief to walk through a Biennale. Such a relief to walk through a Biennale and to say, oh, I didn't know this. Oh, where is that coming from? Oh, it was not in the latest magazine. You may reopen your ears. This reminds me of an anecdote that is at least 30 years ago. I was visiting the studio of a young Senegalese artist who was then attending the School of Beaux-Arts in Paris. Imagine the School of Beaux-Arts. It translates by fine art, but if you translate it properly, it would translate by beautiful art. So there's a school for beautiful arts. I wonder why those schools are not producing geniuses. Anyway, he's there, trying to learn how to be an artist or try to learn art. I look at his work, we sat and started to talk, and when I asked him how he was feeling in his school, he opened up in a manner that was even embarrassing to me. Because I must admit that 30 years ago, visiting an artist studio and asking, how do you do? I want him to be as brief as possible. I've grown older and I give more time. Because at times it may be painful to listen to an artist. telling you all his problems, all the trouble he's seen. Well, he opened up. He told me that he was not feeling well in this school, that there was something that was bothering him, but he could not grasp. We spoke for a while. I promised to visit him. I urged him to look deep inside himself. The solution could not come from outside, and certainly not from me. I eventually advised him, if he was still feeling bad, to give up the school and go back home. I met him a year later. He was totally changed, radiant. When I asked him, what happened? He had a smile and said, I went back home for a couple of months and suddenly I understood what was bothering me. I was surrounded by my mother and by my aunts. I was looking at their moves, their features, the way they walked, the way they talked, the way they danced. And I then realized that the canon of beauty I was taught at the Beaux-Arts did not correspond to my own reality and culture. That there was another beauty than the one I was taught at the Beaux-Arts school. Beauty, and please spread the news around you when you see two people wearing the same nose or the same lips. Beauty is the opposite of globalization of a monolithic world. They even monopolized God. They pretend, I'm talking about the West now, to come from the Greek and the Latin. But the Greek and the Latin have thousands of gods. I won't mention Asia, Latin America, Africa. We had so many gods. They even monopolize it. They Elon Musked it. They made 3 gods. And those 3 gods, of course, were cheating at each other because they made a cut and paste. That was the first book. Then the second book was a cut and paste of first. And the third was a cut and paste of the second and first. And I said, there's one. Anyway, Beaux-Arts, globalization. Beauty is the country of globalization. Beauty is the country of a monolithic world. Its definition merges with what that's chosen by Césaire to describe universality, the sum of all particularities. In a world that more than ever exacerbates nationalism and isolationism, it seemed to us that the only way to build the tout monde that Edouard Glissant dreamed of, and I want to make a little note here. When I quote Glissant, I have read Glissant. It's not because he became fashionable. So Glissant dreamed of conjugating the world beauty in the plural of all languages and of all sensibilities. I have mentioned, for those who have some memories, Emperor Hadrian a bit earlier. The time for me has come to explain why, but first, let's listen to what Marguerite Yourcenar has put into his mouth. And I'm quoting here. To each his own inclination, to each his own goal, his own ambition, if you will, his most secret taste and his clearest ideal. Mine, this is the emperor talking, was enclosed in this world beauty, so difficult to define despite all the evidence of the senses and the eyes. I felt responsible for the beauty of the world. I wanted city to be splendid, airy, watered with clear waters, populated by human beings whose bodies were not damaged by the marks of poverty or servitude, nor by the swelling of gross wealth. That the school children should be reciting lessons in a true voice, that were not inept. That housewives and house husbands, I'm adding this address, should have in their movement a kind of maternal and paternal dignity. Maybe I shouldn't use the word paternal, it has become problematic nowadays. A powerful repose. That gymnasiums should be frequented by young men who were not ignorant of the games and of art. That orchards should bear the most beautiful fruits and field the richest harvest. I wanted the immense majesty of the Roman peace to extend to all, imperceptible and present, not like the police in Sao Paulo, like the music of the heavens in motion. I mean, Adrian didn't speak about the police of Sao Paulo. It's something I've added. I want you to go and Google and say, Remy has been lying to us. So that the humblest traveler could wander from one country, from one continent, without vexatious formalities, without dangers, sure everywhere of a minimum of legality and culture. I shall repeat that again. It was written more than 19 centuries before by a Roman emperor. So that the humblest traveler could wander from one country, from one continent to another, without vexatious formalities, without dangers, sure everywhere of a minimum of legality and culture. We knew Donald T. haven't opened a book in his entire life. Maybe I should send him this. But I'm not sure he can read. So it's another story again. I should focus. Obviously, people in the world, people we call the leaders, have not read their classic. Maybe the world beauty should remain a mystery that must be owned, deserved, wanted. Maybe mystery is the secret of beauty and the secret of life. Maybe, again, the evidence of things we cannot see is what we should be seeking for. Not looking for the obvious, but to that thing that is sleeping there in a corner, to that thing that has not been noticed, to that thing that is not in the newspapers, to that thing nobody is advertising, to that thing that we're missing, but we don't even know we're missing it. Beauty might be in knowing that we're missing. Beauty must be, or could be, in imperfection, in trembling, in hesitating. I shall now call to the floor a strange guy who was far from being perfect. He was a liar, a thief, Minister of Culture of France, a writer, a Goncourt Nobel winner, André Malraux. It's a quote from The Voices of Silence. In this evening, when Rembrandt still draws, all the illustrious shadows and those of the cave painters follow with their eyes the hesitant hand that prepares their new survival and their new sleep. And this hand, whose millennia follow the trembling in the twilight, trembles with one of the most secret and highest form of the strength and the honor of being human. The strength and the honor of being human. Now, I would love you, my dear friend, to stand. It must be boring to be sitting all the time. To stand for a couple of minutes. I will do the same. And show me what you can do with your bodies. You're not forced to be a good dancer. I don't believe in goodness.
Merci bon Dieu, gardez tout ça là na tout porté pour nous.
Clap your hands, be happy.
Merci bon Dieu,
Show me some beauty.
gardez comment la misère fini pour nous.
Come on.
Merci bon Dieu, gardez tout ça là
Say,
na
I'm trying.
tout porté pour nous.
Come on, clap in your hands. Don't be shy.
Merci bon Dieu,
Ah, it's better.
gardez comment la misère fini pour
Yeah.
nous.
Yeah.
La pluie tombait, m'a épousé, tout y manquait Congo, braille manger. À nos danser Congo, à nos danser Petro. Papa bon Dieu dit nazier la mise veni pour nous, mise vini pour nous, mise vini pour nous, mise vini pour nous, mise nous vini. Merci bon Dieu, gardez tout ça là, na tout porté pour nous. Ha! Merci bon Dieu, gardez comment la misère finit pour nous. Ha! Merci bon Dieu, gardez tout ça là, na tout porté pour nous. Merci bon Dieu, gardez comment la misère finit pour nous. Ha! La pluie tombée, m'a épousé, tout y manquait Congo, prêt manger. À nous danser Congo, à nous danser Petro. Papa bon Dieu dit nazier la misère vini pour nous, misère vini pour nous, misère vini pour nous, misère vini pour nous. Misère nous vini. Merci bon Dieu, gardez tout ça là, na tout porté pour nous. Merci bon Dieu, merci bon Dieu, merci bon Dieu.
It's not over yet. You may sit. When we're talking about beauty, we should bear in mind that we're all able to produce some beauty. And as my grandfather would say, it was beautiful. I didn't say you were beautiful. Say it was beautiful. We're talking about those who are gone. This minute of silence was also dedicated to Harry Belafonte, whom you just heard. And through him, to to my old uncle, Frank Etienne. I know you're all familiar with the Haitian Creole, but just to make sure you do, this song says, "Thanks God, misery has ended for us." But again, when we're talking about the monopoly of God, there's a moment where they start to sing and they start to dance to celebrate the end of misery, because rain has come. It takes very little for misery to end. Rain has come. And they go to dance and they say, "Allons danser Petro, allons danser Congo." And all of a sudden, this God that is thanked and that is unique becomes something else. Petro is an essential character in the Haitian Vodou. As you know, the Haitian Vodou has many, many gods. And Congo was the way they would refer to Africa. "Thanks God," he said, "misery has ended for us." We wish misery will end, but misery won't end if we don't try to bring a little bit of beauty in this world. But don't look at beauty like something enormous. Look at beauty like a richness we all carry in ourselves. Alone, we might have a bit of beauty. Together, we'll have all the beauty in the world. Thank you.
I don't think there would have been a better way to start this main opening day of the 36th edition of the São Paulo Biennale than what we've just heard. We give thanks, Mr. Simon Jami. Thank you for your deliberations on beauty. And I feel like I need to tell you guys why it had to be Simon Jami. Because you need a villain to tell you about beauty. It is the villains who know the most about beauty. And he did so perfectly. We give thanks for that, Simon Jami. I think when we meet each other and we ask, "How do you do?" we don't necessarily mean, "How are you?" Maybe what we actually mean is, how do you do it? How do you enact humanity? How do you perform humanity? How do you make it become? So instead of the tirade of complaints, of all the things that are going wrong in the world, maybe each time we are asked, "How do you do?" we should tell them what we did today to actually be human. Thank you for bringing that up. Another reason why we wanted Simon to start this day was because without him, many of us wouldn't be here. Hardly Aliyah, hardly me, and many others. And his being the villain also helped paved that way because he could get fiercelessly into those terrains and insult the people so badly that we didn't need to do that work anymore. That too is part of being human. So saving us the trouble of insulting people. And I remember sometime in the early 2000s meeting Simon Jami and telling him I wanted to create a journal of contemporary African art. And he looked at me straight in the eyes and said, then shut up and do it. And if I were not a Cameroonian like him, although he's a Bassa supremacist, if I were not a Cameroonian like him, I would have jumped off I don't know what floor. But being a Cameroonian, I know that actually meant you're welcome and you can count on me. And there is beauty in that too. There is beauty in reading between the lines. There is beauty in understanding that sometimes you need a spank to be able to do what you have to do. There is beauty in acknowledging that you need to hold the next generation strongly for them to continue the work that you put up. And that's what we've tried to do. So it is thanks to you and many others. It is thanks to you and the Koyos of this world and the Okwis of this world and the BCs of this world and many others that I can't name now that we're able to actually see beauty in the quotidian. And that's what we've tried to do with this exhibition. On that note, I will also set you free. Have a good day. Have a blessed day. Have a good time. Thank you very much.